This is a Jester production. Alright, so I wasn't planning on doing this today, but I've seen gas prices go from $2.79, $2.99 to $3.19 in about the span of 3 days. And I think we're going to start feeling the depression. Now, this may not start until next year because, I mean, the gas price will go up, but the what I'm looking at is the negative GDP growth. We're supposed to have 2 years of negative GDP growth. And um, the world is going to be in a depression from 2026 to 2035, but we should only probably face about 2 years. So let's go into this scenario because I've said that it's scenario number 2. So I mean, we gotta go down a little bit more, but see this right here, the signature event of the Security United scenario is the global depression from 2026 to 2035 brought on by China's collapsing economy. China's economy is already collapsing, and the war with Iran isn't going to be helping us. Okay? So that's still socially divided. That's a Democrat plan. Okay, so right here. The Security United scenario. And notice how Trump and Marco Rubio have all been talking about security. Okay? This is the path we're under. And once again, the signature event of the Security United scenario is the global depression from 2026 to 2035 brought on by China's collapsing economy. After global supply chains and energy markets were severely disrupted by the pandemic and Russia's invasion of Ukraine, inflation rose in many advanced economies, including the U.S., began implementing protectionist policies, exacerbating the economic dislocations in China and the rest of the world. And now you got to think about what just happened again. The oil market, the energy market, the oil market just got disrupted with the Iran war. Okay, we may not see these effects immediately. We're gonna see them in gas, but translated down, we may or may not. I'm not quite sure. Um, but all I know is that once a supply chain gets disrupted, it's gonna take at least 2 years for the supply chain to get back on track. So, and with natural disasters coming too and all that stuff, because it's supposed to be all hitting at the same time, there's supposed to be some kind of big shocking earthquake as well. The earthquake, if I remember correctly, but it just feels like that time is right. And the snow has already disrupted certain supply chains just within our trucking industry. Okay? And there's also a relationship between oil and gold. When oil goes up, gold goes up. Okay, so back into this. So it says early in the scenario, the U.S. and other advanced economies implement energy and climate change policies to electrify the world's energy system and decarbonize the global economy. However, the restriction of oil, gas, and coal supplies cause shortages and wildly fluctuating prices. Power outages were also becoming frequent event in the advanced economies because of insufficient investment in renewable energy and electricity transmission line capacities. Okay. We were in this scenario and then we just now got out of that scenario. Okay, that was between 2020 and 2024. Okay, so China reaffirmed its intention to assert sovereignty over Taiwan. We've seen that. In response, the United States and Western Pacific allies increased their military supplies to Taiwan. That is currently happening. Solidified economic and political treaties with each other, and initiated economic sanctions against China and Chinese company. That is currently going on right now. Okay? We're moving along with the steps. Okay? In the US, federal government spending as a percent of GDP was increasing, having increased from the pre-pandemic 21% of GDP in 2019 to 24% of the GDP in 2025 because of mandatory Medicare and Social Security costs for the aging population, military priorities and new programs for low-income groups, and climate change mitigation. In 2026, the world descended into a depression. China's economy and India's economy were hit hard by the depression, while the United States suffered the least among the major economies. Okay, so just keep that in mind. We're looking for China and India. Okay, they're going to be hit hard by this. And the US is supposed to suffer the least. Okay? So our depression isn't going to be too severe, but we're counting 2 years here. From 2021 to 2050, global GDP growth averages just 0.9% a year. OECD countries, or advanced economies, grow 0.7% a year, while non-OECD countries, the emerging economies, grow 1% a year in the period. Rates for the US and China are 1.1% a year and 0.4% a year respectively. So the United States is 1.1, China's 0.4. U.S. society quickly united on the issue of the economy, security, and the China threat. Okay, so this part hasn't quite happened yet. That's what we're waiting for, and I'm wondering if that's going to happen after this election, because it doesn't look like it's happening this year. But that's what we're looking for, is both Democrats and Republicans to propose to cut federal government spending across the board. Suspend all but essential health, safety, and environmental regulations on infrastructure projects, but expanded payments to the unemployed. Okay, so here's the key. Okay, so this is going, where we're talking about these cuts happening, is going to align probably with this, where it says after 2 years of negative growth, the U.S. economy begins to recover. Total U.S. federal government spending remains at 25% of GDP from 2026 to 2050. Okay? So we have started to see the federal cuts happen. We're still waiting on the Democrats to align with Republicans on this, which I think will happen after this coming election, because, hey, we're freaking sick and tired of the shutdowns, or the Democrats trying to shut things down. Okay, but we haven't seen them come together yet, but they should be. It will happen, because even I read that in the 1998 documents with the coming president, who I don't know. I just know that it's supposed to be somebody really good. And the documents even referred to this person as the Great Uniter. Not these documents that I'm reading, the 1998 documents. Okay, so the global depression results in world energy consumption decreasing. Okay, because of the drop of energy consumption and capacity increases in renewable energy generation and electricity transmission, the world almost achieves its net zero CO2 emissions by 2050 goal. CO2 emission drop. So they are so even though right now we're boosting oil, gas, natural gas, coal, and all that stuff, it eventually leads to new technology, better technology, which I've been trying to tell people. Maybe possibly 0 point energy technology. I'm not for sure on that. But we end up coming in on the we end up doing something new with energy, and I'm about to write an X article where we could actually turn the whole oceans and use the oceans to power everything. I'm going to go into detail about that in X article soon. Okay, but back to this. In 2050, the United States is still the #1 superpower and continues to maintain a strong military presence in the Western Pacific. American multinationals have decoupled their supply chains from China. Okay, we're in the beginning stage. Okay, and this will eventually lead to America reign supreme in digital technology development. Okay, so while this is going on, China's economy will not keep pace with the U.S. economy, and it will begin to grow. Again. I mean, amid the depression, China had affirmed the objective to unite peacefully with Taiwan. However, a new generation of leaders is emerging that is nationalistic and bellicose. Okay, so in other words, we end up defeating China through the economy. And they end up getting new leadership, and I'm taking this part right here as like communism goes away, even though it doesn't say it. That's what I'm looking at. I don't think we're an economic focus. Okay. So yeah. We're definitely on the Security United scenario. So anyway, and there's a possibility that Trump may not be in office much longer. A possibility. I don't know. I can't remember. I mean, there was some kind of turmoil with the president. I still think it may have been Biden, but then Harrison had become vice president. I believe I remember the documents talking about a vice president that didn't do a good job after the president left. And so Trump could get impeached or resign or get sick, is what I'm thinking. Hopefully no other possibility. But I believe the document said that. I'm not quite sure. That was around the parts where I got confused a little bit. But other than that, I just want to let you know that where all this is going so you can make your own preparations. And other than that, this has been a Gesture production. And I will definitely see you all on Wednesday. Alright, y'all have a good one, okay? Bye-bye now.